Okay, so welcome to the second part where we'll be discussing the front-end code. And again, this is going to be a really brief one because the focus is mainly on the backend. So here you go. So I wanted to go to my code actually. So this is an Xcode project that I have built. What's happening is I have certain pages in here, and then this is actual code. So what I'm going to show you. So this is like the welcome page, right? So and then I'm also on the welcome page right now. So this is my code. And again, I will not be going into details how it is, but at least showing you which page corresponds to which code. I'm going to sign in with the same user as I created in my first video. Perfect. Okay. And then after the I would say so that was the I went to the sign in page as you actually saw, and then the sign up page I had shown you before. So this was the code for the sign up page, and there's quite some stuff in here. You also saw earlier the confirm sign up page. This is the code for that. The sign in page you just saw. So that's you can see like for one small thing how much code you actually have to have. And then for the homepage, so this is my homepage code. As you can see, this is also what it is. And now if I say click on continue to stories, this is the part of the code that takes me there. And again, don't ask me why I'm not showing this everything in detail because again, the focus is on the backend. This was the code for the user profile, and then I have up to 4 different pages for instructions. So this is one of the instruction page code. So you can see some of the actual text that I have in there. So I can store this text in the backend and just retrieve it. But since that was just meant for that one page, so I didn't do that. This is also the code for my random number generator. So for example, I can add maybe like I have 50 stories. So I can just put 50 stories and then they will give me a number between 1 to 50 or any number that you actually want, right? But anyways, and then this is the story list. So let me just go one by one. So those were the instruction pages. I can skip it. This is the random number generator page. So now I'm on the list of the stories. So stories list, and then this is where it is. So for example, I have some stories up to 10. That's why I have 10 stories in here. As you can see, it says story4.txt, right? Because it's the text, simple text in the backend, but then I'm also changing back that story. For example, the dash thing is just being changed, and then also the story.dash is being changed back to the stories. Again, this is going to be for another time. For example, now if I wanted to show you a certain story, right? Now, as you can see, for story content view, so this is the main part of the story that I have. So this is the content which is being stored in the backend. So as you can see, if we go to the like part, so the likes part is I like it, and then I have up to, I would say, insert like, load like status, and comment count, right? So this everything is being used, the main part, which is going to be using API gateway. For example, if we're inserting a like, I'm using an API gateway endpoint to post this like in the backend in the DynamoDB table. So it's actually an endpoint, and then I have a load like. So the number of likes in here, for example, these likes, this is actually for the users who like the story is being loaded, and that's actually for the next one. But for now, just the number 3, that number of likes have been, that the story has 3 likes. This is being loaded. And it's because of this function that I have. And this is actually a combination of a Lambda function, an API gateway, and an actual front-end function. So for example, let me just go to the codes there. So this is a function get current user. So I am a current user, and that's why, for example, I have liked it once, I cannot like it anymore. So it loads the current user, so it doesn't allow me to like a story twice. This is the insert function. So for example, this insert like API URL, I have it here at the top. And then again, this is being an API gateway host method combined with a Lambda function that actually adds these likes to the backend in DynamoDB table. I know this is too much, but there will be certain parts in which I will be discussing each single function that works on that specific part, and that's for another time. So as you can see, this is an API and has a post method. It's posting the like in the backend. And then I have loading like, since it's kind of fetching the content from the backend and loading it on the front end. So it's actually a get method with the API. And then also I have another function, which is load user like status. And this is where actually that I am a current user. And then I cannot like a story. So I have two functions. One is load user like status. So it actually shows, for example, I go back to the story. So I was on story number 3, right? And then this thing is kind of red. So it's load the story that I was the one who actually have liked it, right? But if I go say to story number 2, I haven't liked the story number 2. So it shows kind of like a gray button, a gray heart that hasn't been liked. So this function is actually for loading the user who liked it or the status of my like issues. So even for this one simple thing, that either the heart is a gray or a red one, I have to use this function and along with an API gateway endpoint. And then along with a Lambda function, right? And then the next function, I have a load comment count. So in here, it shows 4 comments. Just to load this function, again, I'm using this private function on the front end in combination with an API gateway endpoint, a get method, and a Lambda function. And then, yeah, so that's what it is. And then here you go. If I click on these likes in here, it shows me the number of users who have liked the story. And then that's actually in a different page, right? So it's actually list likes list view, right? So who have liked the story, and then, for example, I have a function fetch the user who liked the story, and then it's adding. Again, I'm using an API gateway. As you can see, an API gateway endpoint along with the Lambda function, and then a front end Swift function that I have in here. So I think so that's it for now. For this part, if I want to show you I would say really quickly the Lambda functions, the DynamoDB and the API gateway. Let me just do that. So first, let me just go to the API gateway. I also want to show you my Lambda functions. So I want to show you that as well. And then the DynamoDB table. So I'm going to do this thing really quickly. So you don't have to look into this thing into details as of now, but let me just go to story likes API. I think so it is, yeah, it is this one. So as you can see, I have, so this is an API. So this is the name of the API that I have, right? Which is a story likes API. And then within that API, I have created a resource. For example, for insert like, this is what I have, and then I have a post method. For example, if I click on the post, so this post method is actually going to a Lambda function and is coming back to the client. And then if you go into the integration request, then this is actually the insert like Lambda function. For example, if I click on this one, it's going to take me to that specific function. And then that specific function has integration with the API gateway, and then is actually a post method, right? And then, so that was for the insert like, and then another one, if I go, is load like, right? So again, it's a get method. The previous one was a post method. This is a get method because it's actually fetching the content from the back. If I am adding something to the DynamoDB table, then I'm using a post method because I'm liking or I'm adding a comment. I need to use a post method. If I'm fetching back that content and I wanted to load it on the front end, that's actually when I use a get method, right? Again, I will be talking about these things in much details in my coming videos for this series, which is how I build a full stack app on AWS. But right now, it's just me showing kind of like a summary of it, right? So again, if I go to load like, right? So this was insert like function. So kind of if I show you the code, so you need to have quite a bit of code that actually shows you how, kind of how it works, the entire thing. So I have added a DynamoDB table, which is in story likes. And then if you go similar to load-like, it has an API integration. And then this API integration is actually a GET method. And then you can see this link that I have in here, I have added it to my front end. For example, this is for the load-like. So I go back to this page where I have this thing. So instead like load-like, you can see this exact thing is actually here, right? So load-like, and then you can see load-like. So if you once you add this API endpoint to your front end, that's when it works. You can have an API endpoint, you can have your Lambda function set up, but if you don't integrate it in your front end, it's obvious it's not going to work, right? But anyways, coming back to its code, also you can see we have a certain amount of code that's supposed to actually get the comment from the backend and load it here. So I'm not going to go into the rest of those methods because it's kind of the same thing. Let me just quickly show you the DynamoDB table that I have for it. So stories like, this is what it is, right? So here you go. As you can see, we have different stories. The like count that I have and the users who actually liked a story. I also have a story comments. For example, if I'm adding a comment, how it works. Is again the same thing. I have the story, I have the comment ID, and this is kind of like a snippet of the comment. Actual text of the comment is stored in S3, but this is just the snippets. So 100, I would say up to 100 characters of the comment, or I would say in kilobytes probably. I don't remember that exactly. Is being loaded in here, and then created date and S3 key, and then a username who has like the story. Let me just show you where I'm storing the stories comment text. So I'm going to go to S3. And once again, I know if you're listening to this thing the first time, it's pretty confusing. If it's not confusing for you, this means you're not getting what I'm talking about. So anyways, so this is the S3 bucket that I'm actually using. As you can see, I have text for my codes, but again, this is a different thing. So these stories that are being stored in here, right? So for example, if I go and open this thing, it shows me the entire story. And then this is what it is. I know I'm just off tracking for a bit, but I still want to show you. So as you can see, these stories in here, they're actually being stored in S3 and here in this format, right? In here like this. And if you click on a certain story, it actually takes you, show you the text of the story in there. But anyways, the main point was where the story comments is being stored. So this is what it is. Again, it's being saved based on which user. For example, I don't want it to mix the comments of different users together. So the user that we created today was Mona.star, and then this is the only commented on story number 5. And then also the metadata of that story comment is also saved in here. And then this is the actual comment itself. So for example, if I just open it, this was the story we added. This is my first time coming to the story. This was something I actually added in there. But anyways, just going back, as you can see, we have the bucket. We have certain prefixes. So the story comments is saved, and then it's the username, and then that specific story. For example, if I come back to the story comments and I go to another person's story, they actually have liked so many different stories. Again, I wanted to separate the comments based on each user, and then each story that they have liked the story 1, 2, and 3, and that's how they're being separated. Once again, I think so it's a lot more that I talked in this video, but I am going to stop for now in here, and then I'm going to continue with the other part, which is actually building the backend on AWS and then the certain parts. So just that's it for now. I'm going to see you once again. Thank you. Bye-bye.